Hello and welcome to Unacademy, the one-stop solution for an English medium civil services UPSC aspirant. Now, today as part of the Hindu analysis, we have 5 to 6 important topics out of the Hindu newspaper Delhi edition. But before we begin, there are two special classes today, one by me and one by Shyam sir. Now, in the newspaper, if I show you the topics, I have two big, one related to the UAE relationship and the other one related to a very interesting work on global warming. There was also an article on white papers, but I am not covering it because at 11:30, just half an hour after we stop, Shyam sir will be taking a special session on the white papers part 2. The part 1 discussion has already happened on Saturday and part 2 discussion is happening today. The concept is very simple. You have to go to the Unacademy app. This is a free class. You can join easily and interact with us there. The link of both these sessions have been given in the description box. Whilst he will be discussing white papers, I will be discussing a very important commercialized crop which is called opium and why opium was so important for the British, and we'll discuss the China angle, we'll discuss the larger triangular trade and other contours related to it. So please remember, the white paper discussion is being done by Shyam sir, and he'll also be taking a special session very soon on the Delhi Chalo movement. That is why I have also not taken that topic, because these are two very specialized things which you should understand from the expert himself, which is Shyam sir, and thereafter do join me at 2:30 p.m. So 11:30, 2:30, two special sessions, and these are the topics we cover today. First, the UAE concept itself, multiple things you can learn here, a lot of data given for the examination. Then we'll talk about ASHA workers, then the direct taxes which have come, and last but not the least, a science related term which is called Brumation. We'll discuss what it means. These two are quite interesting that ways, and we need to understand them in the larger perspective. So welcome, good morning, and let's start our discussion. Remember, Shyam sir, white papers part 2, part 1 already there on the app with his in his profile in that regard. So free session on the app, link given in the description box for both. Now, the first topic we are covering is basically an international relations one, which is India-UAE relationship. And the context of this discussion is very simple, that in the past 8 months, our Prime Minister has gone 3 times to the UAE, and therefore it's a new strategic relationship which is developing in that regard, and we need to understand the contours of it. That why is that, and he's going to go tomorrow and day after also to the UAE. Why is that in the last 8 months, 3 visits, and since he has become the Prime Minister, is 7 visits to the UAE. And therefore, we have to understand what is the value, what is the concept of this relationship. As always, basic gist, then into the details, and then we'll finish up with the summaries. You don't have to revise other than this session itself. I will revise multiple times. So, let's try to understand the basic relationship. I'll give you everything in one place, and then we'll go into the nitty-gritty. Now, there are certain pillars on which this relationship is based on, and the first is economic. The second one would be energy security and energy, and the last is strategic, or what we call as a concept of multilateral. So we'll work under these 3 headings and try to understand what is the value of UAE to India and India to the UAE. Now, when we talk about economic, there are 4 to 5 very interesting indicators as pointed out in this article. And that is what I'm going to point out to you. I'm basically making notes for you, and you should keep this somewhere because this will help you in writing a better answer if UAE and India relationship comes in. The historicity, maybe Chetan sir would have talked about it. This is the present relationship in that sense. So, first is called the Global Green Credit Initiative. This was launched by our Prime Minister at the COP28, and basically it's about voluntary, what we call as contributions to the environment or to sustainability should be incentivized. In this, India and UAE are part of it. So that is the relationship here. This is a very minor point, but an important one, wherein if we are taking initiatives, UAE is helping us. But the next 2, 3, 4 is very strategic in the way you have to remember this only. Second, third, and fourth. This may help you in writing a better answer. We are, when it comes to it, or rather, UAE is the second largest export destination for India. So second, thereafter third, UAE and India, that is, for India, UAE is third largest trade partner, and fourth is UAE is fourth largest investor in India. So I have very strategically put it on second, third, and fourth. Remember 2, 3, 4. Second largest export destination, meaning we are exporting to the UAE. Third largest, what we call as trade partner, and fourth largest investor in India as of right now. This is the data given by the article. Now, this only shows you one thing, which is that the economic ties have been growing and have been maturing and becoming bigger and bigger, and that way UAE in the troubled Middle East is becoming a very important strategic partner when it comes to economics. Now, in energy, we can talk about two things together: an economic and energy partnership, because RuPay, which is a very important Indian developed, what we call as credit card, debit card intermediary, RuPay is accepted for most of the transactions at Abu Dhabi and Dubai. More than that, or digital payments via RuPay cards are allowed. More than that, rupees is now being allowed at Dubai airport, in the sense of if you want to pay in rupees, you can. But the most important energy-based understanding is what is called strategic oil reserves. When we talk about India, India is an oil importing country, and in Mangalore or Mangaluru, we have a very important strategic oil reserve in which UAE and India have gone into an understanding. The Indian Oil Corporation and the Abu Dhabi National Oil Corporation, has basically gone into an understanding, and they are storing excess oil in India, which is important for us because strategic oil reserves are important in a context in which India gets economic blockaded or there's an economic sanction and we cannot import oil. India should at least have 90 days of oil, and in that regard, this Mangalore based what we call as strategic oil reserve is very, very important. So we have the rupee at the Dubai airport, RuPay cards being used, and Mangalore, what we call a strategic oil reserve. But what is the most important here? The most important here is that rupee dirham transactions have been now allowed for oil imports and exports. Basically, we can now pay to the UAE in rupees rather than dollars, and this is the de-dollarization of the world in that regard. Rupee and dirham exchangeability is there. We don't have to deal in dollars, which is good for our forex in that sense. So you can see that in energy, there is a very interesting relationship with economics, and therefore rupee, Mangalore and rupee dirham oil import and what we call export is very, very important. So we have established economic, we have established the concept of energy. Now when we go to strategic, we again get another set of interesting relationships with the UAE. You have I2U2, which is Israel, India, USA, UAE, which is called the Quad of the Middle East. Basically, here India has a strategic military and economic partnership with UAE. Thereafter, UAE and India are also part of what is called India Middle East Economic Corridor. Just to give you a glimpse of this corridor, generally from India itself, we are using the UAE and even Saudi Arabia as a way of undercutting what is called the Belt and Road Initiative of China. So therefore, we are finding an alternative route, which is basically alternative to the Suez Canal, and therefore we are trying to use the Middle East countries, and UAE is a very important port for us in that regard. In this, India, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel, Italy, France and Germany are involved in that sense, but a very important India, Middle East, European or Europe economic corridor. So you can see that there are multiple convergences when it comes to initiatives also. Now, why am I discussing this with you? I am discussing this with you for a very simple reason, that this is what you have to know, should know, because they can ask you a question about India-UAE ties right now. And this only shows a deepening of that relationship. This only shows a certain sense of camaraderie, and in the Middle East, in a way to counter Pakistan and China's influence in this sector. And therefore, the economic, the energy and the strategic all converge to make sure, and that is why the 3 visits in 8 months. Now, the one tomorrow also is quite significant. As I discussed yesterday, there's a Hindu temple. First in Dubai it was inaugurated. Now in Abu Dhabi there's a new temple, Hindu temple, which has been constructed on a land which has been given by the UAE government to India, and in 2017 and in 2019 the construction started for that. So let me again revise, and I'll this time give you a shorter summary which you can remember for the examination. Here I just wanted to establish the basic contours of what we are discussing. This is basically what is called the gist, the main things which you need to remember out of this article. Now let me condense this to make it more what we call as graspable. So you have Green Credit Initiative, Global Green Credit Initiative, 234, which is second largest export destination, third largest trade partner, and fourth largest investor in India. Then we have Rupee connectivity, Rupee being accepted generally, Mangalore, strategic oil reserves, and Rupee dirham transactions for the concept of the relationship when it comes to energy. And last is I2U2 relationship and the India Middle East Europe economic corridor, in which India is also a very important part of. This is to basically counter the Belt and Road Initiative. This is very, very important. If you can remember this much, then you have the basic ingredients to write a good answer in the mains examination. Any of this is also relevant for the prelims examination because you can get a discussion with regards to these 3 metrics. It could say first, it could say third, it could say fourth. Remember, trade destination wise third, second when it comes to export destination, fourth when it comes to investor, because they can easily give you a question that UAE is the biggest investor in India, which is not true, the 4th biggest investor. Then the same way they can ask you with which country can we what we call as transact in oil vis-a-vis rupees, which is UAE. I have previously discussed this also in a CNA. Thereafter, Rupee and Rupee getting accepted at airports and generally for what is called digital transactions is in a way India's soft power increasing further. And when we talk about Mangalore, this is good for India also because we need strategic oil reserves. I2U2 shows that the US is also realizing the proximity of India with UAE being a good relationship, a stable relationship. So it is going with Israel, its own strategic partner, to create a quad of the Middle East. And last but not the least, this is an answer in which India is trying to bring everything together in a way to make sure that we have alternates to Egypt, we have alternates to the Suez Canal, we have alternates to the Belt and Road Initiative, so that India can counter China and Pakistan. Now, this is basically the discussion I want to have with you, and I have given you the main basic gist of it, and I hope you will hold on to this. Now, with this, we can look at the larger, smaller nitty-gritties in that sense. So, we have already discussed the reason why he's going, because there's an inauguration of a temple in Abu Dhabi itself. But in a very short duration, the relationship has become extremely prominent and extremely important. Now, the other aspect here is that what are the pillars of strength? You have India, UAE have launched together in COP 2028 itself, which is UNFCCC. You have Global Green Credit Initiative. For anybody who does not know the UNFCCC, which is the Framework Convention on Climate Change, basically these are initiatives which have brought on by India, where voluntary contributions are being incentivized when it comes to sustainability. On the other hand, the trade grew to 85 billion in 2022-23, making the UAE India's third largest trading partner, India's second largest export destination, India's second largest, very important, third largest trading partner, India's second largest export destination. In the same way, it is the fourth largest overall investor in India. And we have already seen that there is a partnership, the India-UAE Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which wants to take this within 88 days to $115 billion. And it was launched in 2022. The basic point is economic partnership is coming very well. I've already given this information in a more condensed manner. Thereafter, we have also seen that this initiative was ratified as quickly as possible to boost bilateral economic engagement and FDI. Further, RuPay cards are now being accepted for digital public infrastructure, and rupee will also be accepted as a transaction at Dubai airport. Then India UAE also has operationalized rupee dirham settlement systems when it comes to Indian Oil Corporation, making Abu Dhabi National Oil Corporation or oil company as one of the most important, one of the first companies to accept rupee as a way of transaction when it comes to oil, which is very, very important for India's dollar reserves and forex reserves in that regard. Further, when it comes to energy security, strategic oil reserves are also stored in India of this area. Abu Dhabi has stored its strategic oil reserves, which becomes India's strategic oil reserves under the India Strategic Petroleum Reserves Limited in Mangalore or Mangaluru, with investment of $400 million coming in initially. This is the fifth aspect which I told you. And last but not the least is the India-Middle East Economic Corridor, very, very important as a way of undercutting Africa, the Suez Canal specifically, and in a way have an alternative route into the Mediterranean. Now, I2U2 is also important for us, and generally with Israel and Palestine, with Gaza, with Hezbollah, with Hamas, everybody basically destabilizing this sector, you have UAE as a trusted partner. Now, what is the solution and what do you need to do? This is basically the discussion. What is the solution? The basic takeaway here is, what is the takeaway? The takeaway here is that UAE is emerging as a very important partner. We have honored the president here quite a lot. India was honored. We are also a guest of honor when it comes to the global summits which are coming and happening in UAE. The basic point is UAE is an important partner. We need to nurture this relationship. We have to protect this relationship, and we have to make sure that irritants such as Pakistan, China cannot basically add poison to this relationship in that regard. Second is, it is good for India to become a global economic power. We need UAE and its resources, specifically oil, to become what we want to become. So we have to make sure with regards to that, that rupee is becoming more and more acceptable. This is the de-dollarization of the world, where people are finding and countries are basically finding alternatives in Africa also to the dollar, which is though a very, very stable currency, but the reserves becomes a way of bargaining. And last but not the least is, I2U2 has given India a very good opportunity to bond with basically USA and Israel, which are already a good ally power. And we have USA, India, UAE as a very important triangulation in this also. So we need to nurture that also in that regard. So I've given you 3 revisions of the same thing, trying to make sure that this data goes into your mind, which is basically second largest export destination, third largest trade partner, fourth biggest investor, rupee, and the concept of Mangalore and strategic oil reserves, I2U2 and the economic corridor. If you can remember these things, this discussion is more than enough for you to write an answer, which I will show you as a question in the end. You can write all of this and you will have a very beautiful score, very, very well, shows that you are very current to what you need to know and should know. Thereafter, let's move to the second concept. Now, if you go to the second article, this is in basically the Delhi edition only. This is not found in other editions. There's a new edition also called the International Edition. Delhi edition, page number Roman 2. Basically, it's attached separately, and there are 2 articles we'll discuss from here, and it's an interesting one. See, you would have been hearing about a very important metric, the concept of 1.5 degrees Celsius. The concept which came out of the Paris Climate Agreement and is very closely related to the UNFCCC, which is the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And the concept is, as soon as we cross this threshold of 1.5 degrees Celsius, we will, which is basically global warming, the mean temperature of Earth should not go up by 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is basically, if we go above this threshold, the argument is we will go into a chain reaction in which the Earth will start to warm in such a way that we will not be able to reverse it. So, irreversible, the concept that somehow the 1.5 degrees Celsius concept, 1.5 degrees Celsius concept is such that if we somehow cross it, and if this threshold is crossed over, then the Earth will start to warm up and will go into a certain cycle wherein global climate extreme events will increase, and therefore we will not be able to come back from it. So the concept is irreversibility. Till 1.5, there is a chance to cool down the Earth. But once the 1.5 degree warming happens, I'm not saying 1.5 degrees Celsius temperature. The mean temperature is mostly 15 degrees Celsius, but we believe that if it has already gone up by 15 to 16 degrees Celsius, if we go up by 1.5 degrees Celsius, and we have multiple reports, multiple articles which come from the IPCC, which says that we have already reached 1.1. So the headroom which we have is 0.4 degrees Celsius. So basically, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is the IPCC, works with the UNFCCC very closely, which basically does not do its own research but takes and collates research. It says that we still have time, and our basic bargaining power is 0.4 degrees Celsius. We've already warmed the Earth to 1.1 degrees Celsius above its mean temperature. However, there's a new study which has come out of America and Australia based on what is called as a new technique itself, and that is called paleothermometry. Now, this becomes extremely important for you for GS paper 3, science and technology, very, very important, because paleothermometry has pointed out and what it is saying. Now, I hope I've established to you the importance of this 1.5 degrees Celsius, which has now basically become a joke within the circles. And if it was that dire, people would have taken it very, very seriously, specifically America itself with a very big global carbon footprint. But Americans, as they are, mostly deny climate change, and that is expected from them. When we'll do world history in class, we will realize that they're not the most smartest of people in that regard. And when it comes to human indicators, when it comes to even social indicators, when it comes to abortion, when it comes to women's rights, when it comes to violence, ethnic violence, they don't have a very good track record globally, but inside also, in the sense that within the American territories, when it comes to African American population, when it comes to women, when it comes to reproductive right, when it comes to the neo-Nazi trends which are coming in, neo-fascism which is coming in, what is happening to the anti-Semitic concept, the Holocaust deniers, you'll find everybody. From flat earth to Holocaust deniers to Illuminati believing people, they believe in a lot of conspiracies, and for them global warming is also a conspiracy. And for them, therefore, the hurricanes which they see from year on year becoming more and more powerful is just a random event. Hota hai. It happens from time to time, but for them global warming, there's a very big chunk of the population which believes it's a part and parcel of the earth. It will happen and it will cool down automatically. But there's a lot of evidence to say, as the earth is also not flat, but flat earth conspiracy stories are still there, global warming is real. And therefore, this 1.5 degrees Celsius is real. And if Trump can be a denier in that regard, their president can be a denier in that regard, anything can happen. Though Biden has tried to reverse it. Let's see what happens in their upcoming elections in that sense. You never know, Trump can come back, though he's not allowed under the impeachment proceedings, but anything can happen in America. The point is, the idea was that 1.5 degrees Celsius is something which was seen as a threshold. The IPCC believes, the UN believes, the UNFCCC believes that there's time, that we have only reached 1.1 degrees Celsius. But this new technology, the new technique, which is paleothermometry, it is arguing that we've already crossed. This article has been written by an IIT Bombay professor who goes to University of Maryland also. And basically, he's trying to refute or try to find problems in this concept. According to paleothermometry, we have already crossed that threshold. But what is then paleothermometry? That is the question. What is this term, paleothermometry? Now, the concept is very simple. The word paleo should automatically ring a bell from ancient India. Paleo means past. It basically means old, but sure, why not? Old or past. And thermometry means study of temperature. So basically, the concept is that under paleothermometry, we don't look at atmospheric data. We don't look at atmospheric data, which may be more accurate in that sense. It says, according to atmospheric data, we may have only reached 1.1 degree Celsius. However, if we take what is called as paleoproxies. Proxy means estimation. Paleoproxy means the concept is they will take what is now, there are three terms back to back which have come to you, which is called biogenic material. When you take biogenic material, which is for example corals, which actively produce calcium carbonate, or you take what are called the study of two very interesting things. I want to use the right terminology, that is why I'm coming there. So you can use corals, which is biogenic materials, and you can use the other what are called deposits in caves in that regard, which basically give us certain chemical analysis of temperature. That is the concept here. The concept is we are going to use either corals, the stalactites, or the stalagmites, which is basically in a cave. If you have a certain for rock formation from the bottom, it is called stalagmites, and if it is from the ceiling itself, it is called the stalactites. So basically, these are rock formation within very, very old caves. This happens because of certain deposits from the top, and this happens when there are droppings or there is droplet by droplet deposition at the floor level. And corals, you already know, very important biodiversity based symbiotic relationship between algae and a concept of how they show a certain level. Remember, they are a very important indicator of ocean warming and ocean acidification. Now, just to again play with this concept more, the concept is called the paleothermometry. The concept is we will go to corals and we will see the recent coral calcium carbonate, what we call as deposits and formation. We will take the temperature or we will take the quality and indicator. And we have past records also and past biogenic material also. And basically we will compare and we will figure out how temperature has impacted these biogenic materials in order to get a proxy of what is the temperature difference. Now, if you actually can see it, you can see it. This is all based on estimation. According to the new study, and please understand this, very, very important for UPSC, paleothermometry is a technique in which chemicals are used or biogenic materials or chemicals present in the nature are used to see what is the temperature differences, and therefore paleo proxies are taken through these biogenic material. Paleo means old, proxy means estimation. So therefore they are estimating. They would have corals, for example, in the Great Barrier Reef, which could be, for example, 50 years old. They will take the quality, they will, and see temperature impacts corals, and therefore they know the material and they can estimate at what temperature it was produced. And therefore, by looking at the old and the new, they can figure out what is the temperature difference. According to paleothermometry, it has already gone above 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is a very important point you need to understand. So there are three terms which become relevant for you in the examination. Paleothermometry, which is a study of chemicals in order to estimate temperature, a very crude, simple definition. It takes paleoproxies. Paleoproxies means it takes basically estimations in the form of these materials. What are these materials called? They're called biogenic material. Biogenic material, very, very important to understand. I'll tell you the shortcomings once we understand these. Now, let's try to understand. The concept is that there are multiple wildfires, cyclones, droughts and floods happening. So we know that extreme weather events are happening. We also know that this non-scientifically drawn magical warming threshold, which is called 1.5 degrees Celsius, has been decided. And as you know, this has been only an agreement within UNFCCC. There's no scientific estimate of what will happen beyond it. Previously, it used to be 2 degrees Celsius. Now it has become 1.5 degrees Celsius. Now, according to a new estimate of what we call as paleothermometry, scientists from Australia and US have said that we've already crossed the 1.5 degrees Celsius on average over pre-industrial levels, and that is through what are called paleoproxies, which constitute an amazing technique using chemical evidences stored in organic matter, such as corals or these formations in caves, to approximate temperature at some point of the time in the past. Now, for that, what do? Basically, you go to the biogenic material which is produced in calcium carbonate or chalk, and you basically try to establish a local temperature map. Therefore, the biogenic material from the past is found and the biogenic material from today is found, and in this deposition, we are able to estimate a certain temperature difference in their formation. But the problem is, as you can see, it's all estimation. So there are multiple shortcomings which this author has pointed out. But before I go into that, I want to again revise the concept with you. The concept is you have to remember three terms. paleothermometry, you have to understand paleoproxies, and you have to understand biogenics or biogenic material. Now again, I'll tell you, as much as we know the shortcomings, we should understand this because this can come directly as an examination question. Now paleothermometry is the study of chemical deposits. It's a study of chemical deposits to understand temperature and specifically local temperature. Second is paleoproxies, is basically the estimation which we do within this process, and the basic unit is biogenic material, which is materials which are new and old, and through that we are able to establish the temperature differences. This is quite a local study, and therefore there are multiple shortcomings within it, and these are three terms which you should look out for in the prelims examination also. Now, what are the shortcomings? The first thing is that this has been done for a one location and then has been extrapolated, which is it has been expanded for the whole of the globe. This is the first thing, which is this is an exaggeration, and the sample size is too small. Sample size is too small, and therefore it makes no sense. Second is that paleoproxies directly don't measure temperature. They only measure proxies of deviations, which is again an estimation. Third is the fact that the chemical evidence is again only indirect evidence of temperature changes, and it cannot actually understand patterns. And a very interesting example was given by the author, that what about, for example, ENSO, El Nino Southern Oscillation. When we talk about ENSO, when we talk about El Nino or La Nina, these are patterns which happen every year or could be over the past decade, have a certain pattern. That cannot be seen in these chemical deposits. But then you will see ENSO or what we call as La Nina or El Nino as an anomaly. But that is not an anomaly. We know and we understand what is ENSO and what happens with regards to IOD, Indian Ocean Dipole, or anything. And therefore, patterns cannot be found in this understanding. And last but not the least is that without any robust data, they are claiming that we have already crossed 1.5 degrees Celsius. So the author of this article refutes this concept, saying that this article or this concept is too vague to be seen as scientific data, and therefore our understanding stops here itself. We have to know what is called paleothermometry, what is called paleoproxy, and what is called biogenics. And thereafter, last but not the least, shortcomings. It is based on one location, extrapolated for the world itself. It is only estimation, and when I was explaining it to you, automatically would have understood it is actually not very accurate, and it is based on chemical analysis. Where we don't have corals, what will you do? How do you, and every biogenic material is not going to be the same. So therefore, it is a little bit dicey that ways, that if we can actually say we've crossed 1.5 degrees Celsius or not. But as I told you, most of the people don't care about that. Now, before going to the prelims oriented smaller tidbits, let's revise what we've done. What we've done is UAE, and we've understood the concept of paleothermometry. We have very successfully established that UAE is an important strategic partner which is emerging in the Middle East. We have discussed I2U2. We have discussed the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor. And we have also established the 2-3-4 rule. 2, which is the second largest destination, the second largest export destination, third largest partner, fourth largest investor, and we have also established the rupee and rupee and dirham relationship in that sense in this. Now, in paleothermometry, we've established that there's a new matrix which is to understand chemical depositions in organic matter, which is called biogenic material, in order to establish what is the temperature change in 2 points. It's an estimation. It has only been done at one point of time. Makes no sense. After this, it's straightforward, simple. The first is, though this would be something which is developing, the direct tax collections have shown a difference of close to 1%. The pace of this collection has increased in this year more at 20.25% year-on-year rise. Previously, same point of time last year, it was 19.4% uptick. So there is a better performance in direct tax collection. And within direct tax collection, personal income tax collection is outstripping. It is increasing quicker at 26.91% vis-a-vis corporate income tax. The reason for this, I have already told you in one of the CNAs, is the basic concept that if the per capita income increases, if India becomes a bigger economy, the income tax collection will also go up, because your income goes into a higher bracket. It could be inflation also, which is basically everybody is getting more and more money. Money value is going down, but the fact is people will go into higher tax slabs. Last but not the least is that the finance minister has pointed out that we are expecting next year even higher collection than what we are seeing right now. So it's a good indicator of how India is seeing an uptick. The trend-based question, you can expect something like this. Then you have an extension. In the budget speech, the finance minister had pointed out that the ASHA workers, the Anganwadi workers, the accredited social health activist ASHA and Anganwadi workers, which previously did not come under the Ayushman Bharat scheme, which is Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya scheme, which gives you 5 lakh a year cover, health cover for poor and vulnerable families. Previously, ASHA workers and Anganwadi workers were not a part of it, and this has now been extended to them, and 23 lakh Anganwadi workers have now registered for becoming part of Ayushman Bharat. That way, it's an extension. So it is not just poor and vulnerable. The government has extended this to ASHA workers and Anganwadis. You should know, because in the examination, if they give you a statement with regards to Ayushman Bharat, you should know till where does it apply in that sense. Then last but not the least is certain images which you would have seen on Instagram or on social media also, which is, it's a frozen lake, but the snout, which is the nose of the crocodile, is over the ice itself. Basically, reptiles have a certain way of adapting to cold, which is called brumation. Brumation is the way reptiles basically hibernate. What they do is that they go into certain spaces where the temperature is very constant. They drop their metabolic rate in order to make sure that they will not get access to food for a very long time. So they drop their metabolic rate so that they don't need more food in that sense. Further, they also go into burrows, rock carvings, or into shelters. And basically, this is the term for reptile hibernation. Hibernation is when bears and all basically go into hibernating state, where they conserve their energy, where they eat before hibernation, they eat a lot, gain fat, and then keep it. That will keep them warm and give them the basic food needs for maybe the next 2 to 3 months of winter. So hibernation in reptiles is called brumation. That's a simple point. The terminology which was given, again relevant in the examination. So we've discussed 5 topics. Again, a reminder, there was an article on the white papers and comparison. White paper discussion at 11:30 by Shyam sir on the special classes on the app itself. The part 1 has already been uploaded or was already done on Saturday. Now today he's doing part 2, very, very important discussion for your preparation. So keep it in mind. And Delhi Chalo, again, we'll have a specific discussion on MSP, and we'll have an interesting session with regards to that also. And we've discussed UAE, we've discussed paleothermometry, we've discussed ASHA workers becoming part of Ayushman Bharat, we've discussed brumation, and we've also discussed the concept of direct tax collection increasing. With this, we can look at what we call as mains questions. UAE is emerging as a key partner for India in the problematic Middle East. Discuss. Second, what is paleothermometry? What is its metrics and shortcomings? This is a GS paper 2 question, and this is a GS paper 3 question, and a very realistic one. As a form of just a reminder, I want to remind you again that there are 2 special sessions for you planned today. The first one by Shyam sir, Economy Simplified, white paper 2nd part, and at 2:30 I will see you on the app again with regards to the concept of OPM and why the British needed it. So with this, I would like to end the session. Thank you so much. I will see you soon with another set of issues. Take care. Bye-bye.